Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's video. Today we're putting your eyes to the test. Do you wonder sometimes if the added cost of more expensive gear is worth it, or can less expensive gear still deliver? In this video I've got two cameras, one you can buy for $300 and one that costs 10 times as much at $3,000. I took several shots with both of them and we're going to see if you can tell the difference. My name is Simon D'Entremont and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more. Okay, here are the two contenders in this battle. One is the Canon M50, released in 2018. You can buy one used for about $300. It comes with a kit lens, 15 to 45 millimeter, and I'm also going to use the Canon EF 70-300, which is what a camera in this price range is likely to be paired with. This camera has a crop or APS-C sized sensor. The other camera is the full-frame Canon R5, which currently goes for about $3,000 US, released in 2020. I'm pairing it with two lenses that might commonly be paired with it, the RF 14-35 mm f4 and the Canon RF 70-200 f2.8. Combined, the two kits end up being about $700 versus $7,000. Now you may be saying, it's not a fair setup if you're not using the same lenses on both cameras. Well, I want to show you something that might be more likely to happen in real life. Not many people are going to take a $300 M50 and put a $3,000 70-200 f2.8 on it. I'm going to use the lenses that are most likely to be used with the two cameras. But I am going to be taking the photos using two setups with pretty close to identical settings, without disclosing the cameras, and reveal the answers later. So get a pencil and paper ready. The three scenarios I'll test are ones that you might see in real life: action, landscapes, and low light. Okay, let's start off with a landscape shot comparing the two photos. I set the lens aperture to f8 so that the whole scene was in focus. And also, f8 is often sharper than wide open for most lenses. I was on a tripod for stability, allowing me to set the ISO to 100, as I could set the shutter speed to whatever I needed to get the photo properly exposed. In this case, 1/25th of a second. Okay, make a note, which camera took which picture. Okay, now a little action to spice things up. I took photos with both cameras of my pet dog as she was running around with her toy. I used the 70-200 on the $3,000 camera and a 75-300 on the $300 camera. 1/1600th of a second to freeze the action, and both set on autofocus continuous to track the action. Okay, can you tell which one is which? Have a look and make a note. And finally, a low light example to compare the two cameras in a third different scenario that you might encounter in real life. Here's a shot of the Milky Way that I took right in front of my house. I'm lucky to live somewhere with pretty dark skies. I shot this with a 15mm kit lens at f3.5 on the $300 camera and at 24mm on the full frame for a similar field of view, both at ISO 3200, 15 seconds. So here's a before and after processing where the same effects were applied to both photos. Can you tell which is which? Now let's have a look at revealing which cameras took which photos. Turns out that the $3,000 camera was camera A for all the challenges. The $300 camera was camera B. Now let's look deeper into these challenges to understand where the differences really lie in more detail. First, the landscape shots. It turns out that a scenario like this is where a less expensive camera has the best potential to be close to equal to a more expensive camera. One, in landscapes you often shoot at f8 or f9 to get the whole scene in focus. Turns out that at those apertures, the difference between premium gear and less expensive gear is less. Now, sharpness is not a camera feature but a lens one. But the reality is that you'll most likely be using less expensive lenses on a $300 camera. The good news is that at f8 on a tripod, the sharpness difference is almost nil. Have a look at these two examples. Almost no difference. Secondly, we're shooting at ISO 100 and using a tripod to get plenty of light onto our sensor. Turns out that at ISO 100, the image quality between the two cameras is almost the same. And third, autofocus capability, where the $300 camera might not be the same as the expensive gear, wasn't important. So for this scenario, we see that the $300 camera was very competitive, basically equal. Let's look in more detail at the other two scenarios. But first, a reminder that I've now got my own signature edition photography jacket. I partnered with German company Hochland and field tested it in Western Canada photographing grizzlies. The weather changed every hour, so that's why a jacket with 3 separate layers, which you can mix and match, is great to have. An inner fleece, middle puff jacket, and outer wind and rain shell. A built-in photo bag and pouch for a lens cloth means it's great for photographers. We're shipping in October but offering €50 off, a free beanie, and free shipping on pre-orders. Check out the link below. And also the launch price of $100 off my new course on processing wildlife photos in Lightroom isn't going to last long. 10 hours of footage, and I even include my own raw photos for you to process along with me. Check it out below. Now let's look at the action shots of my dog more closely. A couple of observations. First, when zooming up, you can indeed see that the premium camera's close-up results are sharper. Remember though, this is more of a lens trait than a camera one. With the same lens, the sharpness may have been quite close to the same. Second, when I went through my photos, the $300 camera didn't always get the focus right and missed some shots, whereas the $3,000 camera with its more sophisticated autofocus system almost got 100% in focus. So while at the full photo size without cropping, these look pretty close, with the $3,000 camera looking a tad sharper with better contrast, we see that up close the sharpness difference is more evident. So for action, the more you need to crop, the more a $3,000 camera is going to be worth it with extra sharpness and better focus. So can the $300 camera be worth it for action? In this case, clearly we got some good photos with less expensive gear, but the more expensive setup can yield more keepers and sharper for cropping or printing large. For social media use though, the difference is much less, as often people are viewing these on phones or tablets in much smaller resolution, where the sharpness advantage of the more expensive gear is hard to find. Now what about low light? In this case, the $3,000 camera has a larger sensor which performs better in low light situations. The kit lens on a $300 camera also has a maximum aperture of f3.5, not letting in a lot of light for this application, where light is a precious resource. If we look at these Milky Way shots, we can see a difference even at full view. The colors look a bit better on the more expensive camera, and if we peek in close, we can see that the noise level is better on the premium gear. This shows off that low light is a scenario where more expensive gear may yield benefits. That being said, part of the issue here again is that less expensive cameras are often paired with lenses with less capability. What happens if we shoot this Milky Way at f1.4 with a premium lens? Voila! Look how much better that looks when you let in way more light. So this is an important lesson when comparing two cameras of different price points. A great lens on the cheaper camera is often going to close the gap significantly with the more expensive camera. Premium lenses often focus faster, let in more light, and are sharper. I also shot some test photos to test another difference between the $300 and $3,000 camera. I took a photo with each looking right into the setting sun, and I exposed the photo a bit bright for both, which is something we might do in real life, overexpose the bright sky a bit. If we look into the details of the sky with a bit of zoom, we can see one of the differences between the two cameras. The $3,000 camera has preserved the brightest areas in the sky, whereas for the $300 camera, they're overexposed, pure white, what we call blown out. The sensor on the $3,000 camera has more of what we call dynamic range. That is, the ability to capture a wider range of tones like bright whites to dark blacks. So what have we learned? 1, when neither cropping nor overly zooming in, the difference in many genres isn't great. Landscapes and daytime street photography, for example, where autofocus or thin depths of field aren't often needed, allow budget cameras to play significant catch-up. For posting on social media, on small screens, and for casual use, the difference may not be worth it. For action like wildlife and sports where cropping is common and the action fast, as well as low light photography, the difference may be more. and more expensive gear may yield a larger number of keepers and better image quality. So what's the answer to the question, does gear matter? Our look into this seems to suggest that in some genres, yes, but other genres, not so much. And remember, this photo of mine is not a good photo because of the gear that I use, but the powerful image of this person trying to rescue this whale and the caring hand on the whale is more important than the gear I used. I hope you can use these tips to get the right gear for your use, and hope you can come home soon with your own unique and amazing photos. I know you can do it.